World Championship qualification performance already.
Right, well, let's take a look. You know, we looked at how the players got here, but let's see how it's going to play out now. Taunt Druid banned away from Languagehacker, and then the Quest Rogue banned away from Justsaiyan. Not too much of a surprise overall as far as I'm concerned, Sol.
Yeah, go back, check the VOD, watch the last series we cast, check my analysis on the bans on that one, copy pasta, same thing. Quest Rogue going down, Taunt Druid going down, because Saiyan knows that his Quest Rogue is going down, he then has bad matchups against that Druid.
I was about to shout at you and be like, Sol wins the award for laziest caster. Won't say anything twice. It's like, look, I've said this the once, and listen and learn. There are VODs everywhere, so make sure you go and check back any matches you may have missed. This has been 4 days of competition, a lot of Hearthstone, and it's all saved. You can watch it at your leisure, but let's focus on the present. This is a spot in the finals of the Fall Championship, up for grabs for both these players. I think it means different things for each one, as discussed, but both equally as important. Saiyan starting on the Warlock, Languagehacker on that Odd Rogue.
Diamol, Hench Clan, about as good as it gets as far as openers for the Odd Rogue in this matchup go. Just saying, considering various options, because this isn't necessarily just a mulligan for your 4-drops matchups like many are. Like, a lot of your early game cards, Vulgar Homunculus and Acidic Swampoos in particular, can be massively disruptive to the Rogue early game. Spellstones can be clutch as well, alongside Homunculus if you have that. And Hellfire, very nice board clear potential in the mid game as well. Justsaiyan goes for a pretty balanced mulligan. He does keep 2 early drops in the Homunculus and the Player Beetle. That opens up one spot for him to just kind of perfect the hand, essentially. That card that came into hand could be Acidic Swampoos, he'd be happy. It could be Spellstone, he'd be happy. It could be Hellfire, he'd be happy. So he gave himself a lot of options, and he does hit the Hellfire, and now the Ooze on top of that. Sorry, I'm just leaking the script page by page.
So here we go. So the Vulgar Homunculus, and all of these 2-drops in general, what they really do is just put a stopper on the plan that is Odd Rogue of 1 drop into normally weapon, into power 3 drop, hit face go, and then that opening is so consistent for Odd Rogue that it really does just dictate the matchup, or any of the Odd Rogue matchups, because it's so consistent. But Saiyan has all of the ways to actually just stop the plans of Languagehacker here.
I was playing Odd Rogue on ladder a little while ago when Evenlock was one of the, I think it was the second most common deck in the metagame at the time, and I started to experiment with just keeping South Sea deckhand and just putting it on the board on turn 1, so you had a 2-1 in play, because that way when the Acidic Swampoos comes down, you can actually trade off, empty the board, and just still play one of your power 3 drops, right? Because that's the problem that you run into, is when Ooze comes down in exactly this spot, you are just out of plays as Languagehacker. You basically have to just re-dagger and kill the Ooze, and you essentially skip a turn. Whereas if you can at least trade that, you can keep tempo as the Rogue and actually develop another 3-drop behind it.
Look at this, Languagehacker, what we can see, making the correct call of swinging with that dagger, just to say, well, if I do get oozed, then at least one charge has pushed 2 damage. And again, a small bonus for Languagehacker in this situation is he does have the Diamol, it's not dead, and he does have a Firefly as well, so he can, but you know, add something to the board after a hero power.
So disruptive, though.
It really is insane, isn't it? It just changes the game so dramatically.
Now Justsaiyan pretty much has dealer's choice here. He can continue to play defensive, he can play for removal, or he can just coin out a big boy, which is the play I would suggest, and the play that Saiyan seems to find pretty obvious as well. Just drops out a big old 4-7. No Vilespine available for several turns, or a couple of turns for Languagehacker. So he's just kind of got to hold this 4-7 right now.
He does, and the reason this is the play versus, say, Homunculus, Tap, or, you know, anything defensive, even Coin Hellfire, is the fact that instead of you fending off the aggression, you become the aggressor with this turn, which is something you do have to look for as the slower of the 2 decks on paper. And yeah, this looked very, very good, because Languagehacker's just played the Hench Clan, knowing it is 100% dead if Saiyan chooses to next turn.
Yeah, you also preemptively get the 4 power in play, so if Hench Clan or Vicious Fledgling, basically your opponent kept a card, and then you did the Disruptive Ooze play, and they didn't play that kept card, right? So it's almost certainly a power 3 drop that they wanted to play. So by getting the 4 damage in play, you play around that preemptively, and you also start whittling away at the board so they don't get this big wide Fungal Mancer position in a couple of turns' time.
Yeah, and this is not looking good, is it, for Languagehacker? When you get to the point where Fungomancer on 2 minions doesn't actually beat the minions that are already on the board, you're feeling a little bit bad about life right now. This is the position Saiyan's got himself in. He is being pushed now, though. Down to 16 health, so Languagehacker can open up some level of aggression with this Leroy in hand. And a 1-drop into Vilespine. Options are there. But is it going to be enough? And can Saiyan just stabilize as Sacrificial Pact? It's going to be pretty useful too right now.
Saiyan does throw out the life tap. I wonder if we will see him just go for the rather obvious looking Hooked Reaver here, because there is a decent chance of that being a Vilespine Slayer on the left-hand side of the hand as we look at it at Languagehacker, the way this game has played out. And yeah, you recognize Saiyan recognizing the situation again. I've said this a lot of times, but you know, when someone makes like a weird-looking play, it's either a mark that they are very bad at the game or very good at the game. And in this case, I can assure you it's the latter. Hooked Reaver, just too much of a blowout in this spot.
Yeah, and also as well, to me, this looks like a board that sets up a lot better for Defile Hooked Reaver next turn. Because there's multiple minions on the board. You probably, your opponent's probably not going to be able to kill them all. So can you then make a Defile happen? If you can, clear the board and then play a 7/7 taunt empty against Rogue. That's when Vilspine's power weakens a little bit because it doesn't unlock any damage on the same turn it's played.
Right. But Saiyan's still in a world of hurt. He hasn't really bought himself any freedom with that play. He is still looking like he's going to have to drop this Hooked Reaver, and it's still looking like he's going to end up getting Vilespined here.
He goes too deep and actually just plays Hooked Reaver and sack packs in for the heal, and it's like, I can't Vilespine a minion I don't have. This is looking problematic now for Saiyan because we can see the Vilespine in hand, but not only that, but the rest of his hand is not good at winning the game. And that sounds like a really weird thing to say, but they're good cards in isolation and good in other matchups.
Yeah.
But right now, they aren't, second Reaver, they aren't Spellstones, which is not had activated with that Homunculus, for example.
Yeah, and as you pointed out, Defile Hooked Reaver is about the best that Saiyan's got. But Saiyan is going to need a lot more than this because this Hooked Reaver is not presenting any real kind of roadblock to Languagehacker's hand.
Nom nom, nom nom nom. This green skin's pretty interesting to me as well.
I was just thinking about that.
As to when Languagehacker wants or plans to play it.
Yeah.
So many options.
He really wants to hit it on this dagger that he has now,
exactly.
the Flame Elemental Vilespine's play kind of dictates that you want to swing damage to face because it then sets you up for Leroy lethal on the following turn. But yeah, Languagehacker deciding he's just going to hold back here.
See, and the thing with holding back completely is you haven't done 4 damage this turn, and it means you can't, say, play Dagger Greenskin next turn and then gain more damage initially. That's not the way or even Leroy Dagger, for example. So you've actually potentially missed 2 damage for want of holding onto this Greenskin. That's a pretty tough call to make.
It is not going to matter, though.
Nope.
Because Saiyan just sucks it up and says, you know what? Fine, if you have the Leroy, then I'll take this L. And Languagehacker, unfortunately for Saiyan, does have it. And despite Saiyan having all the early game tools, basically 1 to 4 was perfect. Languagehacker, from the point where his Fungomancer came down, was still really able to run away from the game because Saiyan just ran out of steam in terms of answers. And you saw just how good Oddrogue can be in that matchup, even with a pretty atrocious opening exchange between the 2 decks. Oddrogue was still able to climb back into the matchup.
Keep talking, I'm looking at lists.
Death, Rattle, Hunter, Mirrors, Raven.
Okay, so important notes just off the top here. Languagehacker is playing 2 mind control techs versus the 1 of Saiyan.
Okay.
Languagehacker is playing a Defender of Argus, but from the looks of things...
Saiyan has the Devil Saw from memory as well, right? That Languagehacker doesn't?
Saiyan has Devil Saw, and I feel like Languagehacker's just playing 32 cards at this point. What am I missing here? Oh, and Saiyan's playing the Ooze. Right, that's the one I'm missing. So I would have to say that Languagehacker I feel is favored, even though there's a chance that Saiyan gets the Devil Sword cube proc effects, because Hunter often struggles to deal with singular big minions late game if you've already used Hunter's marks.
What a weird tracking. Ends up with the play dead. But Counter Shot, very innocuous card in the matchup. King Crush, not really a card that you like want to take off tracking. It's not a card that you just, yeah, I want to draw that card. I want to have a 9-mana 8/8 in my hand. You want it to sit in your deck forever until you Katharina it out. But yeah, it just ends up with the play dead, just making sure that he can go off if he does land on an egg anytime soon, or if he needs removal with Spider Bomb.
What's really funny, doesn't say, if you just showed a Hearthstone player that didn't know Saiyan's hand, it would just look like the worst Hunter deck someone's ever made.
Yeah.
Right? It's just a Witchwood Grizzly, a Charged Devil Saw, a Spider Bomb, and a Play Dead. Now it looks a little bit better. But yeah, it's just a collection of cards.
I mean, it took a really long time for the game to get to a point where any kind of deck like this worked in Hunter. Right? Like, there's been experiments with late game Hunters, Control Hunters, Combo Hunters. You know, we've seen Malagos Hunter. Some people insisted it was a good deck for a week or two and then very quickly stopped running their mouths when it was proved that they were in fact incorrect. And everyone thought it was going to be the same thing when Recruit Hunter first came around. They're just like, oh, it's just another one of those late game Hunter decks. It'll be gone in a week. And yet here we still are.
I did have a little bit of faith though, because right before Recruit Hunter became popular, I think, someone will correct me if I'm wrong, but Kranich took Cube Hunter. And it was right before anyone had seen it really, to a tournament. I was like, well, if Kranich is taking a deck, it must be good. And lo and behold, we got there.
It's actually a pretty interesting turn going on for Saiyan in the meantime, where he ripped his Death Rattle Activator in what looked to be a pretty risky situation, but he actually has things covered here, because if he'd have hit the egg with his activation, he could have then just Hunter's marked the 5/5 and just dealt with it, right? Like, Hunter's Mark on the 5/1, that kills the 5/1, the bomb then goes off and kills the other 5/5 that he missed in the first place anyway. So it's a very low risk outcome for him, and you see he ends up committing the damage to deal with the second egg anyway, just making sure that Languagehacker can't go off with Terrascale Stalkers and cubes in the coming turns.
Right, it's just tentatively just trying to keep check on your opponent, right? Saiyan knows he doesn't have a lot of explosive, power in the early turns of the game, but the second he gets that Katharina, although he only has one Witchwood left. If he skipped on the Crush, right?
Yeah.
From the tracking. So
Crush got burned to tracking.
Yeah, he does only have one Witchwood. I will say though, 6/6s, and a free bear, still not the end of the world. That's still a pretty solid 8-mana turn.
Right.
Oh, another bomb. Okay.
Languagehacker's hand is going to go off a little bit quicker than Saiyan's in this position, though.
Saiyan has to use this Hunter's Mark now just to get rid of this bear. Again, maybe not the most aggressive thing you can cube. Still, there's no real way for Saiyan to get through it. Yeah. He makes more than one, so...
Saiyan is very obsessively playing around the ability for Languagehacker to use his Death Rattle Activator cards where he can. Obviously, this is a big cube turn, potentially, for Languagehacker. And Justsaiyan does end up playing directly into the Deathstalker Rexar, but that's not something he had a lot of agency to play around. The one thing he could control was Languagehacker making huge cube plays, and he denies that, and Saiyan gives the grin, because there was just about one card in his deck that he needed that turn, and that's it. Wow.
I like it.
I was half expecting Saiyan to throw out the threaten emote, and then the Canadian just apologizes.
Wasn't far off. And now, Howmaster Shaw being 7 health doesn't really help at this point. Versus what we can see as the charged Devil Saw. Wait, maybe that's just good enough. Yeah, I was gonna say Divine Shield poisonous. You forget about the adapt style.
Yep. I like it.
That's just hard to kill at this point. And guess what? There's cubes next to it.
He also knows that it's the potential Katharina turn, right? Like, he knows Saiyan's got 2 cards on the left-hand side of his hand that haven't really been doing anything the whole game, so getting this poisonous minion on board against the Katharina turn. He could have still rushed it out on the following turn with Howmaster Shaw, but that's a lot more mana to allocate, and it still means that the Crackling Razormaw probably isn't getting beast value, right? Yes. So you might as well just play it out, front load it.
Also, just a note saying worst draw in the deck, I think.
Oh, you're absolutely right, yeah.
Because he drew second Grizzly. There
Yeah,
are no
I
beasts
totally
left.
didn't notice, yeah.
No beast left at all. Katrina is an 8-mana 6/6.
He needs to start building some Raptor Shuffle guys so his Katharina can actually get some value.
I mean, I'm a fan of Alphas right now because I feel like Saiyan needs something big.
Yeah.
To flip this board and get something going with this game. I don't think Grizzly does it, especially when you know he dies. I think Saiyan's just thinking about the bomb, because the bomb in a funny way is like, okay, poisonous. Enjoy. Yeah, I actually want it to die.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like this. Just deal with the Razor more, but it might get you something that does, like Death and Decay. Also, the Frostmon is a huge deal in this as well, because Saiyan can swing it around, maybe stay alive long enough, maybe take a more taunt on lifesteal beasts, and actually just have a big turn where he breaks Frostmon and gets 3 massive beasts onto the board. And again, Hunter isn't very reactive as a deck or as a class, to be honest. Won't be able to deal with a wide board of big dudes. Oh, is that Wind Fury?
It sure is, Raven.
Same might wish Death Grip puts the minion in the deck so he can play Katharina and pull a beast out.
That's a little bit better than a Wind Fury Harpy, isn't it?
Yes?
No, 6-mana Wind Fury minion. Just saying. I'd put that in my deck. I'd put that in my deck to activate Corpse Taker. That's all I'm saying.
What if, when it took 3, you know, it took damage, you dealt 3?
Yeah.
What if it, because it had Wind Fury, it did that
6.
twice?
Fine. Deal.
Okay. Saiyan now going for a few more defensive options, gets that completed detour. Didn't catch the second half, of course. But still, Spider-Man on board as well. Gives some... Oh.
Yep.
Hit.
Yeah, what you're thinking is absolutely a thing.
Yeah, oh my. Can generate 2 9/9 Hydras with Wind Fury onto the board this turn if he wants.
Yeah.
Thank you, Saiyan, for my cube activator. I appreciate it. Not that he necessarily needs to, but it does lock out Saiyan from having a Silence Beast.
It's very similar, these poison minions, bombs kind of thing, interactions with cube. It's very similar to the Doomsayer Skull of Minari cube dance that we used to see in cube log mirrors all the time, where Doomsayer was just such a dangerous card because it allowed the opponent to get immediate cube activations. The bomb in this case functioning exactly the same way. Languagehacker sees the play, Raven spotted it straight away, and yeah, it's just too devastating to pass up.
Even dead through like 2 hits of the Zilliax.
It's just 36 damage of minions on the board.
It's just 2 really big beasts
that
then can hit more than once.
Yeah. And Languagehacker has Shore in hand, so he can rush minions out of hand to deal with any taunts and connect almost all of this 36 to face in almost every situation.
Can even just play another cube, rush it into a big beast to make more Hydras.
Yep.
Oh my. Albert Skitterer.
He did get the Skitterer Poison Rush.
Oh, this is nice. You know what? I'll hold my hands up. I always forget in Hunter that this can work.
But what do you do with it?
I'm not saying it's enough, Sol.
Right.
But I forget that this is just more lifesteal, right? You know, you're not really used to having multiple mechs in your deck as Hunter, but Zilliax being in there does make an impact with these bombs.
Interesting. Let's trade.
Does it matter? How wide does he have to go?
You do have to have both Hydras live
to
get lethal. So hitting it with one of the Hydras is out of the question. You just kind of have to rush stuff into it with the Shore and see if you win the roll. Even if you don't, you're still in a very strong position overall, though.
My shield for Argus.
Here we go.
Well, that's still green, which means that is still connecting face. But the other Hydra goes down.
Wow.
Which is 10 damage missed because the second Wind Fury attack can't go through, but still look at the position on the board. It's interesting because I think attacking the Ziliax with one of your Hydras significantly lowers your chances. No, it doesn't. No, never mind. I'm talking nonsense. Ignore me.
I was going to start to question you, but I will not. You took the hit. Saiyan, just going to build a beast, see what happens. Show his Katharina has absolutely nothing in the bank. I'm going to concede, and Languagehacker goes 2-0 up versus Justsaiyan. Looked like Saiyan could hold on there with some very defensive play. It was clear who was pressuring throughout the whole game. The pickup of the Rexar did even the playing field, but it was not enough as those Hydras just stomped their way home.
Yeah, he can't really ask for any more. He said he wanted his run back, his revenge for Justsaiyan defeating him and putting him into the lower bracket in the playoffs group stage. And he's got his wish, and he could not have asked for a better start, and the roll continues. Shudderwock Shaman, the remaining deck to win with, is a tough matchup against Death Rattle Hunter regardless, but the Keleseth and the Earthshock in the opening hand are both huge boons to his chances of winning.
100% agree. I will say though, Saiyan's mulligan turned out pretty well too, with just having that coin egg into Terrascale Stalker. Obviously we can see the Earthshock, which will be able to negate the egg. Right. For Saiyan's point of view, this is as good as it's going to get. Ooh. Seems like a Terrascale Stalker to me. 3/3s also have the added benefit in this deck, or in this matchup, of being able to actually take down the Saronite chain gangs, the life drinkers, the pesky minions, you know, in your opponent's deck, and maybe contesting the board a little bit here. No big surprise for this coin at Devilsaur Egg though. Languagehacker does block out his Mana Tide, so there is something to be gained for Saiyan in you know, silver linings and such. Maybe Languagehacker passes? No. Okay.
I was also going to wonder whether he even bothered to summon the totem there, because quite often this is a matchup where your volcano margins are extremely fine.
Yeah.
The hunter will generate, you know, somewhere in the region of 12 to 20 health on the board. So if that hovers around that 14, 15 mark, that extra 2 health that you have on the board from a random totem can be a problem. Of course, the Taunt Totem is a big win for you in that spot, but any of the others really don't do a great deal.
And now, I'm feeling the pain all hunter players have felt when they see for second game in a row 2 Witchwood Grizzlies and a Katharina in hand. Saiyan's only 2 more beasts away from having an empty turn 8 again. But let's see how it plays out going forward. Candleshot being picked up, maybe going to help chip away some of the awkward health tolls, but in general, not really that impactful so far.
Yeah, more so, Languagehacker off his Keleseth draw has just drawn minion into minion into minion into minion, so he's actually competing on board very fairly with what Hunter's outputting. It looks like he's just going to tempo out a mind control tech here just for stats. No, okay, there was a moment you might have caught the surprise in my voice. But look, for me, with this hand that Languagehacker has, he should just get on with his Shudderwock win conditions. So forget about mind control techs and so on. He can just power through to a Grumble plan anytime he really wants to.
And there are just choices now, right?
Yep.
It's not a big deal if Languagehacker clears the minion and then grumbles, or grumbles and just says you can have your bear. Obviously,
or doesn't grumble at all this time.
Maybe not. There's also, you know, considerations for, oh, do I kill this because of cube and such, but I think either of the plays just would have been fine, because as you said, that the hand is looking so good. The second life drink and lightning storm for emergencies, and also Mana Tide more than likely going to come down next turn to start cycling into some, you know, just extra draw, get those Saronite chain gangs in hand, for example.
Yeah, my concern with the Grumble on this turn, like, it looks great on the surface, but then I started to go down the thought path that you were having, right? Where, like, you trade with the bear first, probably, because you don't want to just let cube into activator into whatever, like, go off for your opponent. At that point, you're just playing a 7/7, so Hunter's Mark from the opponent allows Saiyan to just really, like, push ahead on board at that point. And then this big, like, board lead that you've had this game from Languagehacker just kind of disappears, right? You're not sticking your Mana Tide anymore. You're not just playing 3/3s and 4/4s and dominating the board. Life becomes a little bit more tricky.
It really does. I think there's a consideration, though, that you don't care if they get the board because you have Storm, and because you've slowed them down so much. And with draws like this, straight into Saronite,
Honestly, just forget everything I just said.
Just play the game.
Sorry, I forgot to understand that he was just going to draw Chain Gang off the top next turn.
Now there's a Hex. So not only Earthshock used perfectly to take down the early egg pressure from Saiyan, Hex is on demand if anything too crazy happens, like this cube. Luckily for Saiyan, at least, he has the Play Dead to pair with it, because he already used Terrascale Stalker, not the mana for it this turn, which meant if there was just a hard cube and it got hexed, I would have called game over straight away at that point.
Languagehacker goes Life Drinker here. Again, somewhat interesting. Mind Control Tech in hand, potential that he can just throw out Shudderwalk next turn, because he does have one Chain Gang, a Zola, a Grumble, basically the minimum tools that he needs to be able to go Infinite Shudder. So just getting that Mind Control Tech Battle Cry in the pool would set him up very nicely against like Kathrena summon a minion, which is a very likely turn on turn 8. Whereas Life Drinker number 2, bit surplus to requirements to go into the Shudderwalk pool.
This looks good for Saiyan, and it's as good as it's gonna get, except we can see he just plays into Mind Control Tech as you've talked about. So now Mind Control Tech, see what gets stolen, Hex the biggest threat, i.e. Kathrena or King Crush, depending on the steal.
And maybe that's Languagehacker's thinking.
Yeah, and then you just Shudderwalk. It's like, well, it's worst case scenario, Kathrena with a big beast. Okay, I'll steal it. Can he kill me next turn? Big question. Here's MCT. That's absolutely fine. Some things to bear in mind as well. The threat level of a King Crush being left on the board is huge because of Cube, right?
Yep.
Already seen one. Already seen one Play Dead. Already seen one Terrascale Stalker.
Yep.
The chances of Cube Play Dead being those two cards is as low as it's going to get in this game.
It's pretty close. One of them's a Terrascale Stalker. That counts too.
Yeah.
Is Hellmaster Shore, I believe, coming off the top, yeah. I think Languagehacker's thinking here was fine. He just, if the Kathrena turn happens, I can just play Mind Control Tech from hand then, because I don't believe he has any Glacial Shards in his Shudderwalk yet, right? So if he set up the Mind Control Tech preemptively the turn before, as I was discussing, it's a pretty YOLO play if there's then a board with a Kathrena and a King Crush on it, and you just slam Shudderwalk, and the only option in there is one Mind Control Tech that has to slow that down. So.
No, I 100% agree. Yeah. It was my more point was the point of where does the Hex go on the Kathrena or the King?
No, I was challenging myself because I was talking about that play the turn before.
Sorry, it's a natural response. You challenge anything. It's normally my fault. Powerful though, is there?
Charge Devilsaur is all that's left. Yep.
And that was a guarantee as well. Well, okay. That was extremely likely, even from Languagehacker's point of view. We've seen 2 bears and the King Crush. And unless that Spider Bomb was the Charge Devilsaur, then this was always going to happen.
I believe Storm Volcano is a guaranteed clear here if Languagehacker wants it. Oh, Double Volcano certainly is. Same thing, right? So it's 10, 11, 17, 23 on the board minimum. Yeah. Yeah, it just has to be.
You take 10 off.
Yeah, 10 minimum, plus he's trading 2 3/3s in anyway, which takes away that 6. Yeah, it's free.
Just like the APAC region, according to Tyler.
Wow!
It's true. As in, he said it. I'm not saying APAC's free. I have no right to say that one. This does delay Shudderwalk, but most importantly, I think, for Languagehacker is it just delays Saiyan because he has no board, and Hunter does not do the best game at drawing here.
Oh, that's cute. Yeah, sequencing there, Languagehacker just sometimes gets 3 damage to face. That's like a very tiny thing.
Oh, if it gets through?
Yeah, it is actually just correct. It very rarely matters, but it's a nice catch from Languagehacker to do it that way.
I just realized as well, something we've not even mentioned, and maybe the most important thing about this game, this is basically me versus 3 of you guys. 3 people voted for
I see,
predicted Saiyan, and I predicted Languagehacker.
Right.
Farsight definitely not a bad option here. Although Volcano would clear away maybe the frustrating bomb.
That shot is clutch.
Yeah. It would clear away the bomb, which might be annoying. You also then just don't play Shudderwalk again the next turn. So you just go, you know what, have your bomb and deal with it. But now, the draw into the Glacial Shard, freezing up the bomb. Looking pretty good, because that means Languagehacker's going to get A couple of draws from this Acolyte of Pain.
Yeah, I think more importantly, it's damage reduction this turn, which is fantastic. Just dramatically reduces the chance that Saiyan can kill Languagehacker over 2 turns. And then on top of that, it puts a Glacial Shard into his Shudderwock pool.
Which is
so
huge.
now his Shudderwock is much more likely to keep him alive for the 1 turn that he needs it to.
And also as well, he gets another one because Grumble, depending on how he trades away the board, he's going to trade it away. There's a chance that if he bounced it back, Grumble can just replay.
Yeah.
And here we go. Is Languagehacker going to finish up this
Zola.
series off the back?
There's the Grumble. Uh-oh.
Wait a minute. But Saiyan still needs an answer to 2 7/7s on the board.
I'm not sure what there is, to be perfectly honest.
Funnily enough, this still puts Languagehacker at 1 off lethal.
Keliseth is not the one right now. 15 in
Headset
play,
comes off.
Saiyan is going to give it up. The fairy tale run comes to an end, but at the end of the day, Saiyan will consider this job done. He is going to the World Championship where he rightfully deserves to be, and Languagehacker is the one to take the prize scalp from the tournament here. He eliminates Justsaiyan and he marches onward to the finals.
Yeah, extremely solid play.
Right about now.